am back for another reading of the suttas, and before I get started, I'd like to tell you kind of the reasoning behind getting into all these suttas to begin with. These meditations and poetry and background information is that I feel very lucky this year again that there will be a World Healing Day taking place online throughout the world. Millions and millions of people will be meditating, praying, practicing Qigong, yoga, Tai Chi, sending out healing energy for the planet, for people on April 30th. And as it happens, this is my birthday, and I'm planning on meditating all day long and joining the party, of course, and I hope you do too. So I hope that you look it up and join us all on World Healing Day, and stick around for these attunements so that we can get our planet back in the shape that it should be, put our intentions right, and that sort of thing. Pray for people that need healing, and I'm trying to give you some background information on how to get yourself set up with this energy that can be sent out through the universe to protect us and help us. So this is just a small part of it. Another thing that I will be doing in the coming weeks is adding some videos on things like Qigong and Tai Chi. So hopefully this, along with the meditations, and I'm trying to get to mind, body, spirit, the whole shebang before April 30th. So please stick around and subscribe. And also, I could tell you that on my website I have a bunch of information too, and that is JillJJ.com. And if you look under the energy healings, you will find this whole book that is in PDF form called A Handful of Leaves, and that is what I am taking these readings from. Handful of Leaves, Volume 1. Look for that at the link that is under energy healing on my site, if you would. It's, like I said, it's more than 400 pages, so I'm just going to get as much as I can before April 30th. So included in all my videos are these energy particles that hopefully you will absorb while you're listening. Particles of truth, puddles of love, waves of peace on vibrant flowing colors, and set to the calming music of Kevin MacLeod, who I hope that you will also, support his generosity. He's added a whole lot of songs to YouTube, Google library that are free, and so it would be good to reward him for his generosity and buy his music if you're liking what you're hearing here. And so for this next sutra, I will be talking about the ball of honey. This is the Madhupindika Sutta, Ball of Honey. This discourse plays a central role in the early Buddhist analysis of conflict. As might be expected, the blame for conflict lies within, and the unskillful habits of the mind rather than without. The culprit in this case is a habit called pemnyaka. Unfortunately, none of the early texts give a clear definition of what the word pepanka means, so it's hard to give a precise English equivalent for the term. However, they do give a clear analysis of how pepanka arises and how it leads to conflict and how it can be ended. In the final analysis, there are questions that matter more than the precise definition of terms, so we will deal with them first before proposing a few possible translation equivalents of the words. 3 passages in the discourses map the causal processes that give rise to pepanka and lead from pepanka to conflict, but because the Buddhist analysis of causality is generally nonlinear, with plenty of room for feedback loops, the maps vary in some of their detail. In DN 21 that I'll point out as we get to it, the map reads like this. The perceptions and categories of pepanka: thinking, to desire, to dear and not dear, to envy and stinginess, to rivalry and hostility. In another map, SN IV11, the map is less linear and can be diagrammed as this: perception greater than categories of pepanka, perception greater than name and form, greater than contact, greater than appealing and unappealing, greater than desired, greater than dear and not dear, greater than stinginess, divisiveness, quarrels, and disputes. In MN 18, the map is like this: contact greater than feeling, greater than perception, greater than thinking, greater than perceptions, and categories of pepanka. In the last case, however, the bare outline misses some of the important implications of the way this is processed and phrased. In the full passage, the analysis starts out in an impersonal tone. Dependent on I and forms, I consciousness arises similarly with the rest of the 6 senses. The meeting of 3 is contact. With contact is a requisite condition. There is feeling. Start with feeling, the notion of an agent. In this case, the feeler acting on objects is introduced. What one feels, one perceives. Labels in their mind. What one perceives, one thinks about. What one thinks about, one pepanicizes. Through the process of pepanka, the agent then becomes a victim of his or her own patterns of thinking, because on what a person pepanicizes, the perceptions and categories of pepanka assail him or her with regard to past, present, and future forms cognizable via the I, as with the remaining senses. What are these perceptions and categories that assail the person who pepanicizes? SNIV 14 states that the root of the categories of pepansa is this perception, I am the thinker. From this self-reflective thought in which one conceives a self, a thing of corresponding to the concept of I, a number of categories can be derived: being, not being; me, not me; mine, not mine; doer, reflect onto signifier signified. Once oneself becomes a thing under the rubric of these categories, it's impossible not to be assailed by the perception and categories derived from these basic distinctions. When there's the sense of identification with something that experiences, then based on the feelings arising from sensory contact, some feelings will seem appealing, worth getting for the self, and others will seem unappealing, worth pushing away. From this there grows desire, which comes into conflict with the desires of others who are also engaging in Papanica. This is how inner complications breed external contention. How can this process be ended? Through a shift in perception caused by the way one attends to feelings, using the categories of appropriate attention. As Buddha states in Digha 21, rather than viewing a feeling as an appealing or unappealing thing, one should look at it as a part of the causal process. When particular feeling is pursued, do skillful or unskillful qualities increase in the mind? If skillful qualities increase, the feeling may be pursued. If unskillful qualities increase, it shouldn't. When comparing feelings that lead to skillful qualities, notice that those accompanied by thinking, directed thought, and evaluation are less refined than those free thinking and evaluation, as in the higher states of mental absorption or jhana. When seeing this, there is a tendency to opt for more refined feelings, and this cuts through the act of thinking that, according to MN 18, provides a basis for Papanica. In following this program, the notion of agent and victim is avoided, as it is self-reflective thinking in general. There is simply analysis of cause-effect processes. One is still making use of dualities, distinguishing between unskillful and skillful, and affliction, lack of affliction, the results of unskillful and skillful qualities. But the distinction is between processes, not things. Thus, one's analysis avoids the type of thinking that, according to Digha 21, depends on the perceptions and categories of the Papanica. In this way, the vicious cycle by which thinking and Papanica keep feeding each other is cut. Ultimately, by following this program to greater and greater levels of refinement through the higher levels of mental absorption, one finds less and less to relish and enjoy in the six senses and the mental processes based on them. With this sense of disenchantment, the processes of feeling and thought are stilled, and there is a breakthrough to the cessation of the six sense spheres. When these spheres cease, is there anything else left? Ben Sariputta in ANIV 173 warns us not to ask if there is, isn't. Both is and isn't. Neither is nor isn't anything left in that dimension is to Papanicize what is free from Papanisa. However, this dimension is not a total annihilation of experience. It's a type of experience that DN 11 calls consciousness without feature, luminous all around, where water, earth, fire, and wind have no footing, where long, short, coarse, fine, fair, foul, name, form, all brought to an end. This is the fruit of the path of arahantship, the path that makes use of dualities but leads to a fruit beyond them. It may come as cold comfort to realize that conflict can be totally overcome only with the realization that our arahantship, but it's important to note that by following the path recommended on Digha 21, learning to avoid references to any notion of self and learning to view feelings not as things but as parts of causal processes affecting the quality of the mind, the basis for Papanka is gradually undercut, and there are fewer and fewer occasions for conflict. In following this path, one reaps its increasing benefits all along the way. Translating Papanka, as one writer has noticed, the word Papanka has a wide variety of meanings in Indian thought, with only one constant. The Buddhist philosophical discourse, it carries negative connotations, usually of falsification and distortion. The word itself is derived from a root that means diffuseness, spreading, proliferating. The Pali commentaries define Papanka as covering three types of thought: craving, conceit, and views. They also note that it functions to slow the mind down in its escape from samsara, and as our analysis has shown, it functions to create baneful distinctions and unnecessary issues. For this reason, I have chosen to render the word as complication. Although some of the following alternatives might be acceptable as well: self-reflective thinking, reification, proliferation, exaggeration, elaboration, distortion. The word offers interesting parallels to the postmodern notion of logocentric thinking, but it is important to note that the Buddha's program of deconstructing this process differs sharply from that of postmodern thought. And now we have the original reading of the Ball of Honey. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was living among the Sakyans near Kapilavatthu on the Banyan Park. Then, in the early morning, having put on his robes, carrying his bowl and outer robe, he went to the Kapilavatthu for alms. Having gone for alms to Kapilavatthu after the meal, he returning from his alms round, he went to the great wood for the day's abiding. Plunging into the great wood, he sat down on the root of a bilva sapling for the day's abiding. Dandapani, stick in hand, the Sakyan, out roaming and rambling for exercise, also went to the great wood. Plunging into the great wood, he went to where the Blessed One was under the bilva sapling. On arrival, he exchanged courteous greetings with him. After exchange of friendly greetings and courtesies, he stood to one side. As he was standing there, he said to the Blessed One, "What is the contemplative's doctrine? What does he proclaim?" "The sort of doctrine, friend, where one does not keep quarreling with anyone in the cosmos, with its deities, Maras and Brahmas, with its contemplatives and priests, its royalty and common folk, the sort of doctrine where perceptions no longer obsess the Brahmin who remains dissociated from sensual pleasures, free from perplexity, his uncertainty cut away, devoid of craving for becoming an non. Such is my doctrine, such is what I proclaim." When this was said, Dandapani and Sakyan, shaking his head, wagging his tongue, raising his eyebrows so that his forehead was wrinkled in 3 furrows, left, leaning on his stick. Then, when it was evening, the Blessed One rose from a seclusion and went to the Banyan Park. On arrival, he sat down on a seat made ready. He was sitting there. He told the monks what had happened. When this was said, a certain monk said to the Blessed One, "Lord, what sort of doctrine is it where one does not keep quarreling with anyone in the cosmos, with its deities and maras and brahmas, with its contemplatives and priests, its royalty and common folk, where perceptions no longer obsess the Brahmin who remains dissociated from sensual pleasures, free from perplexity, his understanding cut away, devoid of craving for becoming and non? If, monk, with regard to the cause whereby the perceptions and categories of complication assail a person, there is nothing there to relish, welcome, or remain fastened to, then that is the end of obsession, of passion, the obsessions of resistance, obsessions of views, obsessions of uncertainty, obsessions of conceit, the obsessions of passion for becoming, and the obsessions of ignorance. That is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons, of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, derisive tale-bearing, and false speech. That is where these evil, unskillful things cease without remainder. That is what the Blessed One said. Having said it, the one well gone got up from his seat and went into his dwelling. Then, not long after the Blessed One had left, his thought occurred to the monks. This brief statement the Blessed One made, after which he went into his dwelling without analyzing the detailed meaning, i.e., if with regard to the cause whereby the perceptions and categories of complication assail the person, there is nothing to relish, that where these evil, unskillful things cease without remainder, now who might analyze the unanalyzed detailed meaning of this brief statement? Then the thought occurred to them, Then Mahakakayana is praised by the teacher and esteemed by his knowledge companions in the holy life. He is capable of analyzing the unanalyzed detailing meaning of this brief statement. Suppose we were to go to him and on arrival question him about this matter. So the monks went to Ven Mahakakayana and on arrival exchanged courteous greetings with him. After an exchange of friendly greetings and courtesies, they sat to one side. As they were sitting there, they told him what happened and added, "Analyze the meeting, Ven Mahakakayana." He replied, "Friends, it's as if a man needing heartwood, looking for heartwood, wandering in speech of heartwood, passing over the root and trunk of a standing tree possessing heartwood, were to imagine that heartwood shouldn't be sought among its leaves and branches. So it is to you who, having bypassed the Blessed One, when you are face to face with him, the teacher, imagine that I should be asked about this matter, for knowing the Blessed One knows, seeing he sees. He is the I, he is the knowledge, he is the Dhamma, he is the Brahma. He is the speaker, the proclaimer, the elucidator of the meaning, the giver of the deathless, the Lord of Dhamma, the Tathagata. was the time, and you should have questioned him about this matter. However, he answered, that was how you should have remembered it. Yes, friend Kakayana, knowing, the Blessed One knows, seeing he sees. He is the I, he is the knowledge, he is the Dhamma, he is the Brahma. He is the speaker, the proclaimer, the elucidator of the meaning, the giver of the deathless, the Lord of Brahma, the Tathagata. That was the time we should have questioned him about this matter. However, he answered, that was how we should have remembered it. But you are praised by a teacher and esteemed by your knowledgeable companions in holy life. You are capable of analyzing the unanalyzed detailed meaning of this brief statement. Analyze the meaning, then Mahakakayana. In that case, my friends, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. As you say, friends, the monks responded. Venerable Mahakakayana said this concerning the brief statement of the Blessed One made, after which he went into his dwelling without analyzing the detailed meaning, i.e., if with regard to the cause whereby perceptions and categories of complication assail a person, there is nothing to relish, welcome, or remain fastened to, then that is an end to the obsessions of passions, the uncertainty, the obsessions of conceit, the obsession of passion for becoming, and the obsession of ignorance. That is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons, of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, derisive tale-bearing, and false speech. That is where these evil, unskillful things cease without remainder. I understand the detailed meaning to be this. Dependent on I and forms, I consciousness arises. The meaning of 3 is contact. With contact as a requisite condition, there is feeling. What one feels, one perceives. Labels in the mind. What one perceives, one thinks about. What one thinks about, one complicates. Based on what a person complicates, the perceptions and categories of complication assail him or her with regard to past, present, and future forms cognizable via the I. Dependent on ear and sounds, ear consciousness arises. Dependent on nose and aroma, nose consciousness arises. Dependent on tongue and flavors, tongue consciousness arises. Depending on body and tactile sensation, body consciousness arises. Dependent on an intellect and ideas, intellect consciousness arises. The meeting of the 3 is contact. With contact is a requisite condition, there is feeling. What one feels, one perceives, labels in the mind. What one perceives, one thinks about. What one thinks about, one complicates. Based on what a person complicates, the perceptions and categories of a complication assail him or her with regard to the past, present, and future ideas cognizable via the intellect. Now, when there is the I, when there are forms, when there is I consciousness, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of contact. When there is a delineation of contact, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of feeling. When there is a delineation of feeling, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of perception. When there is delineation of perception, it is possible that one person will delineate a delineation of thinking. When there is a delineation of thinking, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of being assailed by perceptions and categories of complications. When there is the ear, when there is the nose, when there is the tongue, when there is the body, when there is the intellect, when there are ideas, when there is intellect consciousness, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of contact. When there is a delineation of contact, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of feeling. When there is a delineation of feeling, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of perception. When there is a delineation of perception, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of thinking. When there is a delineation of thinking, it is possible that one will delineate a delineation of being assailed by perceptions and categories of complications. Now, when there is no I, when there are no forms, when there is no I consciousness, it is impossible that one delineate a delineation of contact. When there is no delineation of contact, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of feeling. When there is no delineation of feeling, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of perception. When there is no delineation of perception, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of thinking. When there is no delineation of thinking, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of being assailed by the perceptions and categories of complication. When there is no ear, when there is no nose, when there is no tongue, when there is no body, when there is no intellect, when there are no ideas, when there is no intellect consciousness, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of contact. When there is no delineation of contact, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of feeling. When there is no delineation of feeling, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of perception. When there is no delineation of perception, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of thinking. When there is no delineation of thinking, it is impossible that one will delineate a delineation of being assailed by the perceptions and categories of complication. So, concerning the brief statement of the Blessed One made, after which he entered his dwelling, without analyzing detailed meaning, i.e., if with regard to cause whereby the perceptions and categories of complication assail a person, there is nothing to relish, welcome, or remain fastened to, then that is the end of obsessions with passions, of obsessions with resistance, the obsession of views, the obsession of uncertainty, the obsessions of conceit, the obsessions of passion for becoming, and the obsessions of ignorance. That is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons of arguments, quarrels, and disputes, accusations, divisive tale-bearing, and false speech. That is where the evil, unskillful things cease without remainder. This is how I understand the detailed meaning. Now, if you wish to have gone to the Blessed One, question him about this matter. However, he answers how you should remember it. Then the monks, delighted and in approving of the Mahakakayana's words, they rose from their seats and went to the Blessed One. On arrival, having bowed down to him, they sat to one side. As they were sitting there, they told him that what had happened after he had got into his dwelling, and ended by saying, then Venerable Mahakakayana analyzed the meaning of these words, these statements, these phrases. Mahakakayana is wise, monks. He is a person of great discernment. If you had asked me about this matter, I too would have answered in the same way he did, that this is the meaning of this statement, that this is how you should remember it. Then this was said. Venerable Ananda said to the Blessed One, Lord, it is as if a man, overcome with hunger, weakness, and thirst, were to come across a ball of honey. I'm pausing here because we finally got to the good sweet part called the honey. I just inserted that sentence, but I wanted to pause here, and I'm going to repeat this paragraph. When this was said, Then Ananda said to the Blessed One, Lord, is it as if a man overcome with hunger, weakness, and thirst were to come across a ball of honey. Wherever he might taste it, he would experience a sweet, delectable flavor. In the same way, wherever a monk of capable awareness might investigate the meaning of this Dhamma discourse, with his discernment, he would experience gratification. He would experience confidence. What is the name of this Dhamma discourse? Then, Ananda, you can remember this Dhamma discourse as the ball of honey discourse. That is what the Blessed One says. Gratified, then Ananda, delighted in the Blessed One's words. And so ends the tale of the ball of honey. The next one will be about two sorts of thinking. And so I'll be putting that up in another day or so, and I hope you come back and keep joining me and keep raising your frequencies, and in doing so, let's get ready for World Healing Day and really make an impact, okay? So have a great day. Namaste.